Hello, welcome to Film Lovers. I'm Sonia Chung.
I'm also Sonia Chung. No, sorry, no. No, I'm not. I'm the trainee boy.
You're
But
the
I'm,
work experience boy.
yeah, work experience boy.
And he's trying to take over my job.
Yeah, yeah. I've got my performance review coming up as well, so I've probably just blown that.
All right then, work experience boy, since you're practically taking over and you're helping me out, why don't you tell everyone what we're going to do today?
Okay, so today we're going to be looking at creature features.
Yay!
So all those lovely things that are going to be very popular coming up to Halloween. So we'll look at some of the best ones, or what we think are the best.
Okay, that sounds good. So do you want to go first? Do you want to say one of yours first? We'll take turns. So what we can do is you can name one of yours and then we can talk about that and then we can go onto one of
Yeah,
mine and
okay.
talk about that and we'll do it that way then so it's fair. Do you want to go? All right,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah. So I'll
yeah, you
offer the
start.
first one, and this is Jaws.
Ah, of course.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't really go wrong with Jaws,
You
can you?
can't.
It's one of the best ever.
Yeah. Do you know what's funny about that film is that it's one of those films I can watch over and over again and I still get scared. Um,
Yeah,
and it's kind of the shark is kind of relentless, isn't it? It just keeps going and going. And
yeah. I mean, it's one of those films that so many people have tried to copy it since, or do like cheap versions, but they've never been able to pull it off the same way that Spielberg did.
no, they had a nightmare making that film as well, didn't they? Like it went over
Yeah,
budget and then it got shut down and all sorts. Um, yeah. So why don't you take over then, since it's you raised up Jaws? So why don't you tell us a bit about Jaws? Obviously, everyone knows about it, but why
yeah.
is that one of your favourites?
I think Spielberg's always been good at getting a setting in a film and then really kind of making you feel like you know the place. So he pretty much sets the scene, early on. So obviously the lead character, he kind of likes things quite quiet, but he's good at his job. And then you've got the mayor, who's a bit of an idiot.
Hmm.
Uh, so when this terrible thing happens at the beginning of the film where someone gets killed by a shark attack, uh, you know, Roy Scheider, the lead character, his best instinct is to kind of shut everything down just to be safe, but
Yeah.
obviously the mayor doesn't want to. So you've got all those kind of elements in it, and then you've got Richard Dreyfuss in it as well, who's kind of interested in the shark from a scientific point of view.
Hmm.
And then later on, you've got I think my favourite character in it is the one played by Robert Shaw,
Oh,
the
yeah,
kind of
he's
the old
amazing.
salty sea dog,
Yeah.
the stories that he has to tell. But no, Jaws is really brilliant. I think part of the appeal to it is the fact that you pretty much don't see the shark until like the final 20 minutes.
Well, that's it, isn't it? They had
Yeah,
so much. They had so many problems during the making of that because it was like there was. I mean, there were some shots of real sharks. Obviously, they had
yeah,
one of their crew go out and I can remember a woman also, or a few of them go out and shoot real sharks, and then they were using the mechanical shark, and the mechanical
yeah.
shark was causing all kinds of problems because it kept breaking or having malfunctions.
Yeah, and then I don't think Spielberg was ever really happy with the look of the shark
But,
either, was he?
well, it's funny now
Uh,
because you look at that shark and you think it looks so crap, but it still scares the shit out of me.
yeah, but I think by that point in the film, you're so invested into it, and you almost feel like you don't see him, but you feel like you have seen him because all those POV shots and things, and then seeing things like when they're underwater and the head pops out, and you see all the aftermath of what the shark's done.
Yeah,
So you feel his presence throughout. So by the time you actually do see it, and they never linger on it too much, you kind of buy it. I think.
yeah. And also,
Yeah,
it's very good because even though they had all those problems, like they nearly got shut down at one point, didn't they? They went over the schedule. They went on for like months and months and months. And
yeah,
and they had
I
to
can
ask.
imagine that's the difficulty of filming around water is
Yeah, I remember
apparently
seeing
quite
that. Yeah.
legendary as well.
And then apparently there was all kinds of like when because they had to film obviously in the sea itself, um, but then they couldn't stop all the ongoing boats going by, and it just every time they were setting up for a new shot, and then they were like, "Okay, it's clear, we can go," and then suddenly a boat will pass by in the distance. It's like, oh, they're gonna start all over again. Um, yeah, there are all kinds of things, but you know what? The thing is, it really heightens that movie, the fact that you very rarely see the shark, and you think you see the shark, like you said, because it's all POV shots. Um, so basically, you're the shark yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because it's making you feel that way, and but that those shots have basically scarred me because every time I go in the sea, I just think when you get to a certain point in the sea, when you're treading
yeah,
water or whatever, or you've been on a boat trip and it's happened a few times where you jump off and you're having a little splash around or whatever, all I can think about in my head is that image of my legs or two twiglets from below. And yeah, so that film apparently didn't do very well for great white sharks. I remember it had a lot of bad press, didn't it, afterwards? Because it terrified
yeah. I
people.
can imagine so. Yeah,
And I remember meeting one guy, one of the swimmers, and he said that because he was from South Africa, and they used to do a lot of their training in the sea, and apparently their coach said, "Don't watch that film. You need to be
yeah,
training." I like this. It's like, don't watch it. But yeah, apparently loads of sharks got slaughtered after that. So it really didn't do well for the for the ecosystem either. But yeah, that film still scares the crap out of me. And you know that mechanical shark, that robot or whatever it was,
yeah,
it's just in some. It was called Bruce, wasn't it? They nicknamed
yeah.
it.
Bruce the shark.
And I mean, obviously, it was in the 70s when that got made. I think.
Yeah, this was a year or two before Star Wars, so this one really kind of uh, it was almost the start of the kind of blockbuster
Yeah,
as we know it today. And then obviously Star Wars, like took things on even further.
yeah. And that was obviously like a summer blockbuster, wasn't it? Because
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that it was. No one expected it to do that well because at the time most of the stuff in the cinemas was quite pessimistic and all these things like The Godfather, big epics and stuff like that. But
yeah,
this was almost like a B movie. Um, and Spielberg at the time was quite unknown. The cast, aside from Robert Shaw, weren't massively known,
no,
so it wasn't expected to do well. But it's one of those that started quite well, and then word of mouth just kept going, and it just had a really long run.
yeah, and a
It
really
was,
good life
yeah.
as well.
But I think that's just sort of testament to how well made it is.
Yeah, it does say a lot. I mean, I can't remember how much went into making it in the end, but I do know that they had to keep asking for more and more money, and because it was a disaster making it, and so many things were
Yeah,
going wrong, they kept going over schedule, and it was like, when is this gonna ever end?
yeah. I
But
mean,
that,
there were a lot of directors at the time, from all the guys like Coppola and Spielberg and Scorsese rising up at the time, all these really creative directors. A lot of them had similar problems.
oh really?
Like Ridley Scott as well would go over budget and over schedule. But studios seemed to be, they'd always threatened to shut down, but they never sort of did. So,
Yeah, they did that with Jaws,
yeah,
didn't they?
yeah. So there's always like executives saying, oh, we're going to have to shut you down if you don't hurry up. But, they did stick with it in the end. And for the most part, these films paid off.
And did it justice.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because I
Um,
think, these kind of films, you've got to stick by your director if you've got a really sort of creative director.
yeah, yeah, definitely. You know that shark apparently is just in some rubbish dump somewhere now. they took a they took a photo of it
Yeah.
like many years later, and obviously the paint's eroded, so it just looks like a robot. It just looks really crap now. It looks like all tins and yeah. So, but yeah, no, that shark is just like, I mean, everyone looks at it now and they all go, "It looks so fake. It looks so fake." But then secretly, when they watch that film, they're still scared out of their minds.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And and I always think the opening scene, it's the first person who gets killed is that girl, wasn't she? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go running and swimming in the sea. I'm drunk and all, and the boy goes after her. Like, why would you go swimming at night time in the sea? What? Why would you think that was a good idea anyway? So, yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of
So
thought
always
she
young
had the.
people in these kind of horror films always do stupid things,
Yeah, they
don't
do,
they?
don't they?
Yeah.
You think, what are you doing? Like, don't go up there. What are you doing? But there you go. All right then. So, is there anything else you want to say about Jaws? I'm sure there's lots of stuff we could talk about.
Uh, that's okay. So let's do your turn. So what have you got to offer?
So I really want to talk about the relic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd like to hear this. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I'll let you sort of
Oh, okay. So I
describe it.
think the last time I saw it was probably because it was shown on BBC iPlayer, and it was one of those films that I never saw when it came out. Because it was like I think it came out in like '98 or something, but I never saw it. And everyone kept saying in the reviews were like, it's really, really scary. And then just out of
Yeah.
coincidence, randomly, it showed on BBC iPlayer. It was either last year, I think it might have been last Halloween or maybe a little bit later. But I thought, okay, I'm going to watch this and I'm going to watch it in the dark. So I turned the light off. And I don't know how to, you're going to have to help me with bits because I've forgotten a bit of it as well. But basically, it's, hang on, I'm going to help going to Google and maybe that can help me describe it. So I'll give us hypnosis. So yeah, sorry, I was up early this morning, so my brain's not quite with it, and I'm really tired. Hang on, the relic. Right, so let me give you a hypnosis of it. So the relic is a 1997 American monster horror film directed by Peter Hyams and based
Yeah.
on the best-selling novel Relic by Douglas Preston and Lincoln. Hang on, I've had to say it, a Lincoln Child. The film stars Penelope and blah, 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 blah. Right, I'll move on to that. So, um, in the film, a detective and a biologist try to defeat a South American lizard-like monster who is on a killing spree in a Chicago museum. So basically, the film starts off. I don't know how much of this you can remember. With a man, and he goes. I don't know. He's obviously somewhere, and he's been given some kind of voodoo. Like, first of all, don't go to a village like this where people dress like this and do things like this. Where he gets offered some kind of, I think it's a potion or something, and they make him drink it, and I can't remember because they worship this devil-like lizard thing.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like, you don't kind of like The Thing, where it takes over your body and your body changes. So it kind of, well, basically he's a man, and in over a period of time, he turns into a lizard, and he has to keep eating, 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 and the only way he can do that is by killing people, right? So somehow he gets onto this boat and it gets sent over to America to all these artifacts go in this Chicago museum. So this new exhibition is going up, and all these horrible deaths start happening one by one. So this cop goes along to Tom Sizemore, and one of the workers in the museum, I think it's Penelope Ann Miller,
Yeah.
have to sort of figure out what the hell it is that's killing people. And this thing is just terrifying. I mean, it's the most unbelievably ugliest looking thing ever. You need to jump in and help me because I can't remember that much and my brain's not with it at the moment. I'm really tired. What do you remember of it? It's really scary. I can't. It looks like. How can you describe how it looks like?
I mean, it is quite gruesome looking. The effects in it are pretty good.
And it
I
does
think
things.
one thing is that the director is kind of known for using a lot of natural light. So
Yeah.
yeah, so he'll always use things that are on a setting. So if there's lights above, it's from actual proper lights and things like that. So his films can be quite dark and shadowy. I think that helps the film.
Yeah.
It's kind of really creepy and unnerving.
And this thing, right, that goes round, and it goes for the intestines, like all the insides. So it's really gruesome how it leaves its victims because you'll have like
Yeah,
its intestines on the floor and you got the heart here. And there's one bit where there's someone doing an autopsy on one of the dead bodies, and there's absolutely nothing on the inside because it's taken all the insides out, like the heart, the intestines, absolutely everything. And it's just like half of its stomach, this person's stomach's missing. And one of the one of the deaths is this I can't remember, some guy trying to get out of it, of this museum, and he's like shouting, "Get me out of here! Get me out of it!" And they're trying to pull him out, and then he stops shouting, and by the end they drag him out, like half of his body's missing. It's just this
yeah.
because this
Lovely.
thing is leapt up, and it's just horrible. When you watch that in the dark, it's really really terrifying. I mean, I don't know what you remember of it.
I think the problem I had with this one, in terms of remembering it, is around about the same time there was this other film out called Mimic,
Oh,
which
I heard about
is
this one.
yeah, this is also a creature feature.
Okay,
This was directed by Guillermo del Toro.
the one who
So
did uh, the one that won the
yeah,
Oscar.
yeah, Shape of Water. So this
That's
was one
it.
of his first Hollywood films. So they came out very similar times.
Hmm.
They had a few similarities, and both creature features as well, and both looked quite similar. And obviously,
Okay.
you got Relic, Mimic. So when I sort of think back to them, I get them mixed up a bit
Yeah.
when I sort of remember bits from each film.
So
But
were
they're
they
two that
quite?
I want to sort of revisit as well
Yeah, I
because
should watch
it's one a while.
The Mimic. I can't remember if it was the Mimic that everyone was worrying about, was too scared, or the other one. But yeah, that kind of rings a bell now that you say that. Um, but yeah, that creature, I tell you, would not want to come face to face with that creature in the middle of the night. It's so, and the fact that it's in the museum, so there's like lots of children
Yeah,
running around. It's like sort of like innocent people just la 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 going to the museum, and then there's this
yeah.
thing
And
you
then,
let,
but once it gets dark as well in the museum, that gets quite creepy and unnerving.
yeah,
I think, yeah, that's a
c-
good setting.
yeah, because it's I think it's like it's hiding in its exhibition, isn't it? But then I think during the daytime, it's kind of hiding in the sewers or something. And yeah, and it obviously comes out at night because that's the big thing, isn't it? So, but there's one point when all these people get trapped in the museum, and then they suddenly encounter this big scary thing that's chasing them, and they're trying to run away from it. Oh, it's just absolutely terrifying. I'm gonna watch it again because I can't remember much of it. But yeah, the relic was one of my ones on the creature list. Is there anything you want to say about it before we go on to one of yours?
No, I think I'm going to add it to the watch list though because I haven't seen it in so long.
Yeah, I need to do that as well, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can talk about it in more depth afterwards. It's like hard to sort of jog your memory about it. So why don't you go on to one of yours?
Okay, so another one I'll offer out is The Thing.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's one of my favorites. Why
yeah.
the thing?
This one is the John Carpenter one. So
Okay,
the one, yeah, the remake.
not the
Probably,
remake.
yeah. So probably
82,
the
wasn't
best
it?
example of a remake, yeah. Because this was a remake of a 50s film.
Oh, I never knew
Uh,
that.
yeah, so John Carpenter's, yeah, he remade this old 50s kind of B movie.
Okay.
And obviously, injected a lot more kind of gore and horrible things in it as well.
Because they remade it again, didn't they?
Yeah,
In the 2000s or something. And I
yeah,
remember having
but
an
that's definitely not worth looking
well,
at.
that's it. Is that I remember having
Yeah,
this massive argument with this young, like, sort of film student, and he was like, "No, this is great," and I got so angry with him. I was like, "I'm not watching it. I refused to watch it because I just thought my generation one was the best one ever." And I just thought all those CGI effects just do it no justice whatsoever.
oh no, definitely not. Because I
So
think the effects in the John Carpenter one in '82 were so kind of groundbreaking.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
because I
they
mean
had
at this time, yeah, all those animatronics,
well
there
they
was all these kind of crazy people in the makeup departments of
doing all kinds of weird stuff.
yeah. So this was at a time where just through the '80s, they were experimenting so much and creating all this really wild, amazing kind of stuff that was really inventive and all in
Yeah.
camera.
And I think with that kind of stuff, I mean, that's kind of what I miss from that era because they obviously didn't have all the CGI effects and stuff. They had to be more inventive, didn't they, in
Yeah,
coming up with ways to do things. So yeah. But why didn't you explain to people who don't know what the thing is? So tell them what the thing is and how it starts.
yeah. So it starts where this group of them in Antarctica, an American group, uh, are heading to a base, and they encounter someone from another base, several hundred miles away, like a Norwegian crew,
Hmm.
and they're chasing this dog, and they're so intent on killing this dog that they end up shooting one of the American crew, and then this guy ends up being shot and he's killed. So they're really kind of curious about why he's gone so crazy trying to get this dog.
Okay.
They send out a crew to the Norwegian base and find that everyone's gone, and it looks like something horrible's gone on.
Hmm.
And then they find a buried crater with something underneath that looks potentially like a ship. So basically, the thing is this organism that can go into a living host, be it an animal or a person, and then it starts to sort of invade their body and starts to mutate it. So
It imitates it as well, doesn't it?
yeah, it can imitate them, and then it can start spreading and sort of mutating, and then obviously then you've got these sort of very gruesome special effects of the animals changing, and or the humans kind of mutating as well.
You know what? The only scene that I really can't watch is the dog. I find that so hard. That the one with the dog that's mutating into all
Yeah,
kind. That one really that I can't watch that, but that's because I'm an animal lover. I don't mind watching the humans, like the bit where what's he called it? The bit with the heart, the when he's doing the heart thing. What do you call it? Those things, and then the chest
oh yeah, he's
opens.
got the defibrillator.
That's it,
Yeah,
and the chest
yeah,
opens up, and then his arms get sucked in, and it's just. And then
yeah,
there's one that gets kind of thrown up on the ceiling, and there's his head rolling around on the floor, sort of walking around on spider legs, and
yeah.
I
And
mean
it's
it's
all
just
really weird kind of
it
stuff as
is.
well, like the spider legs outside their head. It's very strange, but
You know
I
what?
think that's what makes it really kind of horrible.
Um, I remember my friend introduced me to that film, and I think I was about 19. And he had a film projector in his room, so it was like having a cinema basically, and he was just projecting films onto his wall. So it's basically like having a big cinema in your room. And this was the first time I watched it. I was hiding behind a pillow, and he was throwing
Yeah,
cushions at me when I was scaring the crap out. He was like, "Watch it!" Or he was trying to take the cushion away from me, so I'd have to see the horrible effects. I was so scared. It was just like, but I think the thing what makes it really scary is that it's kind of creepy in a way. You could say it's not as bad, obviously, but COVID in that situation is that it's going on inside you, and you don't know who's got it. and that's what's really, really scary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's that same kind
definitely.
of
Yeah,
paranoia, and then also with the group of the scientists, aren't they? There's Kurt Russell, he's one of them, and then obviously they figure this thing out that there's an organism and it's mutating, but nobody knows who it is. So there's that really sort of that sense of paranoia and tense. And what they do is, because some of them don't want to have um their blood tests, what they do is they tie them all to a chair. He ties them all to a chair or something.
yeah,
So
that's it. Yeah.
that's it. And he's basically, they all have blood samples, and what is it that he puts in his blood samples to check?
So what they figure out is that the alien DNA has this kind of defense mechanism to heat. So what they would do is if they put this heated rod into human blood, it would just do nothing.
Okay,
But if they
yeah,
put it into alien blood, then there'd be a reaction.
yeah.
So they're just one by one putting this hot rod into like each sample. But nothing's happening until they finally get to that one.
And then and
Yeah,
they're all tied, aren't they, on the chairs and tied to
yeah,
each other, so they can't go anywhere, and they're all shouting because there's this alien creature that's basically been thrusted all of a sudden up into the air. And oh, it's just absolutely, I can't describe it. You've got to watch it.
it's
But
it's just great. Yeah, but I think John Carpenter's so good at those kind of films,
yeah,
horror films, and sci-fi and stuff like that. So it's just really well made, really well shot,
who
and the pacing is really good as well.
it is, and it's that sense of, like I said, the paranoia between them, in that
Yeah,
they're so scared to. I know there's one of them shuts himself away, doesn't he? Because he finds out the truth, and then he goes a bit crazy. And he takes a gun and he shuts himself in his room, and he's like, "Don't come
yeah,
at me!" No, 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 no," because he knows what's going on before they all find out, and he doesn't want anything. So he starts. I think he shoots one of them, doesn't he?
he does. Yeah, he
Yeah, yeah,
just goes
yeah,
completely nuts. So
yeah,
it's a good, it's a kind of this whole psychology in the film as well makes it really interesting as well.
yeah,
I think how they react to that kind of situation and all this distrust,
yeah.
and then you're in such a remote setting as well. It's just like just this perfect unison of all these horrible kind of
Well, it's kind of
ideas.
like Jaws. You're in a very vulnerable position because you're in the open and there's nobody
Yeah,
around to help you. It's the same kind of thing, isn't it? Whereas Jaws is in the sea, you've got like masses and masses of sea and nobody around. And these people are basically kind of not sort of isolated in this harsh environment where there's no one else around to help them. So that's what's
yeah,
also really scary. Um, do you know what's funny is that the ending, that's the one that's the big question mark, isn't it? Because in the end, there's only two of them
yeah.
left and they're outside. So it's Charles and it's the Kurt Russell character. And well, you take it away. You explain that bit to everyone. So
I
we
think
don't
it's
know.
just this idea that they're both are sort of distrustful of each other. There's still that kind of they've come through to the other side and they're kind of a little bit resigned maybe because I think there's a realization that maybe uh, they can't really go back to civilization just in case that they spread this thing on.
Do you think that's what it is? And
And then
also,
they're both sort of
yeah, go for it.
so they're also distrustful of each other in terms of the other guy he could still be the
It's
thing.
yeah, the thing,
Yeah,
yeah. And also by then everyone else has died, haven't they? They've either killed each other
yeah.
thinking that the other person might
So
be it.
they're basically the only two left that it could be if it's still there.
Yeah,
So
because we
yeah,
don't know how it ends, do we? Because he ends it by saying, "Well, it'll either, we'll find out in the morning, won't we?" So they either freeze to death, or I don't know. I don't know how it kind of leaves a question mark for you to figure out who actually is,
yeah,
who actually probably is the thing. And
yeah.
there's
I
kind
mean,
of
they've
like,
had a few theories as well.
oh,
That
have
one of
there?
the characters, not Kurt Russell, the other one played by Keith David,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that you can't see his breath. You can see Kurt Russell's breath in the cold air. But
Oh,
the
at
other
the
character,
end,
I mean, it could just
yeah,
it could just be the way it's shot or the angle, but you can't really see his breath coming out.
yeah, that's
So
true,
that's one
actually.
theory that people think of, that maybe he could be infected.
I think I saw something about that, and they also suggested that he was the one that was the infected one. And there's like a timeline of everything, of like who came into contact with who, and do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because there's some scenes where people are completely locked away, and when they're locked away, that's when obviously they're more vulnerable. Because there's that scene somewhere towards the end, the beginning, when one of the dog walks in, doesn't it? And you see a shadow of
yeah,
someone turn around, and you have no idea, because then it just sort of stops there. But then obviously that person has been infected by the dog, who's the alien thing. So yeah, it's that kind of real sense of paranoia.
yeah. And there's also that element that initially when you've been affected, you might not even know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
until that you kind of get that reaction inside
It's
where it
just,
starts to sort of mutate.
yeah. I mean, can you imagine that going on in your own body? That would be so scary. That'd be scary. And there's one bit where one of the scientists, when it hasn't properly mutated, and it's like this bloke walks out into the cold, and they're trying to burn him, and it's making this noise going roar,
Yeah,
and they're like, shoot him, and he's like, you can't shoot him, that's one of their colleagues or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of like that moral thing, like, is that still a person that I know, or is that now a creature that could potentially harm me? So that's also another layer of sort of paranoia and eeriness, if that makes sense.
yeah. No, I mean I think that's just the brilliant thing about the film,
Yeah,
that it feels it's got all the creature feature stuff, but it's also a very kind of intense human story as well.
yeah, definitely. Is there anything else you want to say about the thing?
Uh, no, that's okay. So let's hear your next suggestion.
All right. So Tremors. Do you know
Yeah,
Tremors?
I do. Yeah, very good. I love this film.
Why don't you explain what Tremors is, or should I explain it?
No, you can explain if you want.
Okay, so Tremors is basically set in somewhere in the States, in the vast area of the desert, isn't it? Is it
Yeah, it's like a very small kind of
community?
town in the middle of nowhere, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So basically, it's surrounded by lots of desert. It's a small town, and it's with Kevin Bacon. And when I was a teenager, I was a very strange teenager, Tom. I had a massive crush on Kevin Bacon, and my poor mum would search high and low for posters of it. So I literally watched every Kevin Bacon film that I could sort of get my hands on. And
Yeah,
Tremors came on TV, so I was like, "Oh, can you record it? Can you record it?" So I watched it, and so basically, Tremors is about. I mean, it's very cheesy as well. It's kind of tongue in cheek, but
yeah.
it
It's
is
almost as much
scary.
comedy as it is horror, isn't it?
Yeah, which is a very clever mix. So basically, it's a small town in the middle of a desert somewhere in the United States, and they're all very friendly. Blah 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 blah. There's these two handymen, Val and Earl. So they're basically doing bits and bobs around to help everyone out. And that's their jobs, and they're getting fed up. And they encounter seismic. What's her name? What does she do? The person who measures
Yeah, like
earthquakes.
she's
Si-
she's like a graduate trainee, so she's studying seismology.
that's it. So the
Yeah,
study of tremors, basically, in the earth, and
yeah,
equators and all that sort of stuff. So what happens is that throughout the beginning of the film, and then as it progresses, they begin to slowly realize that our people are dying. And there's one scene with the car. Oh, that's the very beginning, isn't it? The car, where there's this old couple in a car, and the car starts getting sucked. I know it was her husband gets sucked down, and then
yeah,
the whole car gets sucked down, And then as they go along in the film, they eventually realize that they're these big under how to describe them under the earth, horrible flesh eating monster eating worm things
Yeah,
with
giant worm things.
with um they don't have teeth, they have tentacles, don't they, and they basically
Yeah,
grab the victim and pull it into this humongous mouth. Um so yeah, so that's, and there's about 3 or 4 of them, and they can't see anything, but they can, is it they can hear things,
yeah.
the
So they can hear
vibrations.
the vibrations above ground. So if you're walking on the ground, they can hear your footsteps, and they kind of get drawn to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually really funny because you know what, like, it's one of those films I've seen loads of times now. The first time it scared me, but then when you watch it again, there are some really funny bits in it, and the only bit I didn't like was, I found really unfair, was that the Chinese guy gets taken by one of them, and I thought,
Yeah,
that's not fair. Why didn't they let one of the? Oh no, one of the white guys does get tucked down, doesn't it? He goes. He doesn't go up high enough on the building. He goes into one of those
oh yeah, yeah,
tire things, and he gets sucked down. But yeah, it is gruesome, but it's just really sort of tongue in cheek funny as well, especially the dynamic between Kevin Bacon and the other guy, Fred Ward, I think his name is.
yeah. Fred Ward.
The
Yeah,
two
that's it.
the two cowboys who are fed up with their jobs and want to go somewhere else and do something else instead. And yeah, so, and then also you got the kind of the underlying love story between he fancies the graduate who's doing the seismology quakes and all that kind of stuff. But it is really funny. It's just, yeah. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that one.
Well, this is one of those ones that I'd not seen it for probably 25 years at least,
Oh,
and then
really?
I
So it's
watched
been a
it.
very long time.
I watched it a couple of weeks ago again, and I'd forgotten how good it was.
It
It's
went. Sorry.
yeah, it's such a it just goes by so quickly. It's such a fun film.
It is, and you know what I was going to say? I remember now. Um, it flopped, didn't it? Or they think, I think he thought, Kevin Bacon thought, oh, because at that time his career was kind of not really, because you know everyone's career goes up and down, and I think at
Yeah,
that point his career was kind of flickering, and he was like, obviously he needed to make the money, and he was married to, well, he still is married to Kira Sedgwick, and he was walking on board, was like, I have to do this fucking film about underground worms. Sorry about the language.
yeah.
And then that film, and he thought that film was going to flop and go straight onto video because it was so tacky, the script. Um, I think it did go straight onto video, didn't it?
I think it didn't do too badly, but it probably didn't do as well as they expected.
No.
And it's not like it wasn't a huge budget film. I think what happened was that when it did eventually go to video, it became just hugely popular.
Well, that's it. It was one of those
Yeah,
films, a bit like Shawshank Redemption and stuff, where when they come out, they're really badly received, um, and they basically bomb the what do you call it, the box office. And then years later, there's kind of like a cult following, and word by mouth, it sort of gains its popularity, if you know what I mean. So there's quite a lot of films
yeah.
that are like that, and it's one of those films that's like, you kind of, when you say that word, you kind of think, "Oh, I love Tremors," but yeah, my sisters do the same. They go like, "Oh, I love that film." It's really
I think it's
funny.
just one of those classics of that era as well.
Yeah,
That yeah, and it was this good mix that there was those sort of horror comedies were becoming a bit more popular.
yeah.
I think blending the two genres together has been something that is worked really well. And you tend to when you pull it off, you tend to get a cult sort of following.
Yeah, that's true. So it does work when you can mix genres as well, doesn't it? I remember doing that,
Yeah,
studying that in college. Um, but yeah, you're right actually that it does kind of pick up a kind of certain following of people or demographic of people after a period.
Yeah,
time.
definitely. And I mean, it ended up spawning, like a franchise, didn't it?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I saw the
yeah.
second one. Did you ever see the second one?
I probably did ages ago, but I couldn't
It
remember much of it.
it did get
I think
naff.
Fred Ward was back though, wasn't he?
Yeah, Kevin Bacon
That one.
doesn't come back, but
Yeah,
the second one got really naff. It's basically these big worm things. They kind of die off, and they're just suddenly dying, and they were wondering because they come back to this other place, town obviously and stuff, and he's like, oh god, again. So, but then these things start dying by themselves, and then what happens is that in the inside of these creatures, they kind of mutate into these different creatures, which are basically weird mouth things walking around on
yeah,
two legs, and instead of censoring only they can't censor sound anymore, they censor heat. It just got really stupid, but I mean it does get really stupid after a while,
yeah,
doesn't it? There's only so much, but yeah, there's like 2, 3, 4, and god knows how much, so it's done really well. um
yeah. Because at one point they were gonna do a reboot on TV, and I think they
oh,
shot the pilot. Kevin Bacon was back,
oh really?
but yeah, it never sort of went forward. They might have actually released it just as a one-off in the end, but
Yeah.
yeah, so he did go back to it in the end, the role.
Yeah, but he absolutely thought he hated that film when it came. He was like, "I'm not. I can't believe I have to do this job. It's so crap." But yeah, so Tremors is one of my favorite creature movies. Um, Anything else you want to say about that? I can't think of anything else to say about Tremors. Really, I
Uh,
think we've said it all.
no, no, that's good.
Okay, so let's go on to one of your creature films.
Okay, so I think I'll go with maybe Jurassic Park.
Ah, that's literally I was going to say that one next. Okay,
Yeah,
why Jurassic Park?
I think that's one of those. There's like a few films as you grow up that become, where it overtakes the summer. There's been a few that I've watched, like Scream. I
Hmm.
remember that just overtook everything, and then The Matrix. But before that, the one really sort of big one that was everyone seemed to obsess over was Jurassic Park.
And when that came out, that was like, was it 93?
Yeah, '93.
Yeah, and when that
Yeah,
came out, that was like a big. Um, there was so much hype about that film, wasn't there? When it was in the cinema, like, oh,
yeah,
we got to watch this film because that was when kind of like the very first sort of CGI type effects came into place, wasn't they? So it was a really big thing, and everyone was commenting on how amazing those dinosaurs
yeah,
those dinosaurs look. Um, yeah, so take it away.
yeah. Because I mean, at that point, I would have been about 12, 13 at the time. I think when this came out.
Yeah,
Uh, 12 actually, I think I was.
yeah, I was about
So
to say.
yeah, it was. By that point, most of my sort of film upbringing had been on video,
Hmm.
sort of, and also I was getting into the cinema, but there was nothing at that point that had been that kind of huge. So this was the first really mega film for me. So this is like people growing up watching Star Wars or Jaws. For me, it was probably Jurassic Park was the first really kind of mega one.
Uh huh.
Uh, you had Batman a few years before, but I was a little bit too young for that at the cinema, if I remember, because that was I think that was the first 12 certificate
Okay.
Batman, and I was just a little bit too young to see it at the cinema. So Jaws, yeah, Jurassic Park, sorry. Yeah, it was just again like Spielberg did before. He builds up to it so well, so you have all these moments of like tension and horror, and you've not even seen a dinosaur yet.
No, and you know,
Like we see the lamb leg coming down,
oh, that
or the
yeah,
goat, yeah, the goat leg
oh, the
coming
goat
down from
leg.
the car.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
there's kind of like a mole, isn't there? One of the
yeah,
scientists, he's like releasing the eggs or something to someone on the black market, and eventually
yeah,
gets killed off by that dinosaur that spits out and has funny things go in a car.
That's one of the bits you always remember you coming out of the cinema. You just remember that bit.
Yeah,
The,
that. And he's like, it looks so cute in the car, and then he goes and starts spitting out this crap from his mouth. But yeah, I was going to say, it's one of those films, right, where if you watch it in the dark, it's really scary.
It is, yeah. I mean,
especially the T-Rex.
Spielberg, yeah, he can build things up so well, and I think he learned that all going back to Jaws.
Yeah.
Where you don't need to be seeing dinosaurs all the time.
No.
You just build up to it, and then by the time they're coming in, I still don't think they've been bettered. The CGI dinosaurs in the first film.
No.
Yeah, because I think they still look so great, and then the sort of modern remakes that they've done, they tend to just throw everything at the screen, and then you get a little bit cold to it, I think.
Yeah, and also some of those dinosaurs were animatronics. Like I think the T-Rex wasn't he?
Yeah.
So
they had lots of animatronic heads and things for close-ups. I think the blend works really well, and it helps sell the CGI parts as well.
Yeah, like I heard that the scene with the kids in the car, they were apparently really terrified because that dinosaur had a mechanical another malfunction, and it just went a bit bonkers. And this thing was huge, apparently. I don't know if there were people inside controlling it or not, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. And you know what I think is an interesting comparison? You could kind of say that the T-Rex is kind of modelled on Jaws, couldn't you? Or would you?
He's that kind of size, isn't he? He's so huge.
Well, it's the fact that, and this brings me on to another question I was going to ask you. Who do you think? I think the fact is, before I forget, is that with the T-Rex and Jaws, they both go on instinct and intuition. Do you know what I mean? So they go with what they know, and they know they're hungry, they're going to get it. That's it. And this brings me on to another question now. Which dinosaur do you think was most terrifying, the T-Rex or the Velociraptors?
I think it was the raptors. It's the fact that they were still big compared to the humans, but they were on ground level as well, and they worked in unison with each other.
That's what I found really scary as well. I think when people ask that question, and I've asked my sisters, we all say the Velociraptors. But, I mean, the T-Rex has the advantage because of its sheer size. But then the Velociraptors, like I said, like you said, they're strategists, aren't they? So they form they're kind of military. They form they're kind of like apex. If you think about killer whales, when they go to attack something, they're not sort of independent creatures. They do it in a certain way, and they work together. And that's what I think it makes it so terrifying. Especially that scene where the guy goes, "We're being hunted." He goes, "No, you go." This woman runs the Laura Dern character, and he goes, "Clever girl." And this thing runs, sort of goes, and goes up from the side. Because he's too busy looking at the one that's in front of him to realise that there's two more next to him. If that means hiding in the bushes.
He realises, he's meant to be this sort of, really clever hunter.
Yeah.
He's been outwitted.
Yeah, exactly. This clever dinosaur guy, and he can't outdo them. Yeah, I was going to think, do you know what I always found funny about that film is that I always think, if the T-Rex was a real thing and offset, it would just be kind of like this big diva and sitting in its chair going, "Where's my bottle of water served at God knows room temperature, and where's this?
Where's my leg of goat?"
Yeah, exactly. So that's always what I thought about that. But technically there was that thing, wasn't there, where they were saying the T-Rex wouldn't have been alive during the Jurassic period, but obviously that's the most famous dinosaur that everyone knows, really.
I think I think probably partly because of that film that nowadays, everyone, if you're thinking of dinosaurs, everyone thinks of T-Rexes or Velociraptors.
Yeah.
I don't remember knowing what a raptor was before Jurassic Park as well. So
No, I don't.
I knew what a T-Rex was and a few of the other ones, but I'd never particularly known about the Velociraptors. So I think that film really kind of made them popular.
Yeah. And probably made quite a few people want to become, what do you call it? Like Ross Geller from Friends.
Oh, yeah. Is he an
Paleontologist.
Paleontologist, yeah, that's it.
so yeah, I'm trying to think of the other creatures in that film. What did you think of what are they called? The Vegisaurus. Is it Bronchosaurus?
Yeah, was it? Yeah, Brontosaurus.
Brontosaurus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good sequence, I thought, as well.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
good to have a mix of them. So, it's not just constant threat. But you do feel like what's his name, Richard Attenborough.
You do a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, you probably think he probably made a bit of a mistake putting T-Rexes and raptors in. You could have left it with the veggies, and it would have been just as impressive.
But it wouldn't have been as exciting, I don't think, with just a veggie eating. It's like, let's go and have some tree. Okay.
I mean, you could have saved money on goats, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Bringing in all those goats.
Yeah, that scene when I first saw it, and you just suddenly see, like, where's the goat? And then suddenly you see a leg fly over. Oh,
Yeah.
it's just like, and it's so gruesome as well when they show that scene with the velociraptors being fed, and it's this other live goat that's been basically ripped apart, and you can just hear it squealing. Oh, it's just awful. I think that's partly what made me become a sort of pescatarian in a way. I was like, yeah, I'm not eating meat again after that. So, yeah, but is there anything else you want to say about Jurassic Park?
No, we can move on to your next one.
I had one, and it's just slipped my mind. I'm trying to think. It literally. Oh, okay. Here's a debatable one. I'm not sure if we can talk about this, but can we say that The Terminator and Terminator 2 is a creature film, even though technically it's an actor playing him?
I think the first one more so, because it's more in the horror genre.
Okay.
And I think he's more of a. It's played out as more of a creature film in that sense. In that he's this unstoppable, machine.
And he's absolutely terrifying, isn't he?
Yeah. So it's definitely, that one is definitely played more as like a horror, because it's almost like a slasher film.
Yeah.
And he's inhuman, so you could call him a creature.
It's really terrifying that he's kind of is, and that's a bit like, you could say he's a bit like Jaws as well, in that he's just relentless. He's just obsessed with finding Sarah Connor, and is it Sarah Connor?
Yeah, Sarah Connor.
So, and he goes looking through the phone book and just kills basically every single Sarah Connor, and then she clocks on because she's like a young waitress in a club or whatever, and she thinks someone's stalking her, because at the same time there's the Reese character who ends up being John Connor's dad that's been sent back in the past.
Yeah.
And Tom, I used to have such a big crush on him when in that film. He's really, really handsome. He's so good looking in that film. I can't remember his name. Michael Biehn, that's it. He was one of the Alien films later.
He used to be one of my favourites in the 80s, because he played Kyle Reese in Terminator.
Yeah.
And then he was Hicks in Aliens.
Yeah, that's it.
And when I was growing up, those were two of the coolest characters I remember. So yeah, a big favourite of mine.
Yeah, so
I didn't fancy him, but yeah.
so
I
obviously,
just thought it was very cool.
So I mean, everyone knows this, but so basically, the Terminator is a thing sent back in time to kill Sarah Connor. Sarah Connor hasn't had her baby John Connor yet, but she will when she meets Reese, who ends up being his dad, who he obviously knew because he sends him back in time, and along the lines he dies, blah blah blah. So basically, this machine. Oh, and John Connor is. Explain what John Connor is.
So he's going to be the future leader of the resistance against the machines.
That's it.
Because the machines are basically. I'm sorry to tell everyone this, but machines are going to take over the world.
Yeah.
So we're all in a whole heap of trouble, but John Connor is the one that's going to save humanity.
Yeah. So basically, this machine, the Terminator, which is it half cyborg, half human flesh?
So it's like a robot skeleton, and it's got living tissue on top of that.
Oh, and there's that really awful scene where he's messing around with his eye.
Yeah, so he's doing this, like, he's got self-repair, so he's repairing his own eye.
And his eyes kind of popped out, basically. It's just really, yeah. So he gets sent back in time to kill the mother of the head of the military resistance in the future. So he gets sent back, and then at the same time, the Carl Reese, that's his name, right?
That's his name. Yeah.
Gets sent back to protect her, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I find interesting is that in the first one, obviously, he's this really terrifying, relentless killing machine that just is determined to find Sarah Connor and terminate her at any means. And anyone that gets in his way. In the second one, as he comes back, it's obviously not the same robot, but the robot comes back to actually protect John Connor and Sarah Connor. So in that one, it's interesting to see actually the empathy side to it, even though it's not technically the same robot or the same person. Do you know what I mean? It's an interesting.
Yeah, because he's almost being taught by John Connor, isn't
he?
So,
yeah. And he's like, you can't do that. You can't behave like that. You can't just go around shooting people like that. So yeah, that's the interesting thing. But I think when I see the first one, I'm a bit like you. The first one is definitely a lot more horror and terrifying than the second one. The second one, I think, is more action and it is suspenseful, but it's more. It becomes more big stunts and things. Whereas the first one, I don't think the first one was made with a very big budget, was it? It doesn't look like it was.
No, it was quite a low budget film.
And it does look like it, but I mean, it did really well.
Yeah, I think what they sensibly did as well is James Cameron basically filmed most of it at night. So he thought it would look more atmospheric.
And cold, I guess.
Yeah, and cold as well.
Yeah.
But the pacing in the film is really good as well because, as soon as kind of Carl Reese comes into the film and the Terminator finds Sarah Connor, it's just essentially a long chase. So they're having all this exposition, but they're doing it on the move. They don't stop still to sort of, tell what's happening.
And sort of as this is all going on, sort of beginning, she actually thinks that the Carl Reese character is the one that's coming after her to kill her or stalking her, doesn't she? She doesn't actually realize because he's trying to figure out who this machine is that's being sent back. But he doesn't know who it is either. So he's basically keeping a watchful eye on her. And as it's like in the club, isn't it? Basically, he just has these flowers or something. And then these guns come out and start firing everywhere. So it's...
I mean, that sequence is really brilliant, I think.
Yeah,
it's
and when
my favourite sequence from the whole kind of franchise.
Yeah, when he's driving, and he's is he driving a police car or something? And he just drives straight into the police station and he kills the guy that's on the front desk. Like the car smashes right through the window, and it's like, and you think, oh, it's all right, the police are going to protect her now. La, 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 la. No, they can't do anything.
No, because he wipes out a whole police station.
I know.
You get the sense of how unstoppable this machine is.
Yeah, which is terrifying. It's
But I
absolutely
think
timed,
what's brilliant is that the whole end sequence where you think it's over,
and it's not.
um, it's not, because it was actually going to end there, but uh, because of money and things like that, they weren't too sure they could do any more. But James Cameron was quite insistent.
Yeah, is the first? I'm trying to think. Is the Oh, it's when
Yeah, so
um. So
they
basically, it's just the robot bit that's basically left, isn't
yeah
it? Because all the skin has come off, and you think, oh, it's fine, it's died, but this thing keeps going. This mechanical, the actual mechanical insides of it,
yeah
because all the flesh has been taken off, etc. Am I
yeah,
right?
and
Is
that's
that
quite yeah, that's it. That's quite a night. That whole kind of end bit is quite a nightmarish
yeah?
sequence.
And then it's just like her foot's trapped in something, and this
Yeah,
hand is coming, and it basically ends with his hand around her throat, basically, doesn't it? And then she presses a button, goes, "You terminated." Yeah, I can't say you terminated, effer.
yeah,
Ducker. There you go. I'll use the word duck. But yeah, you're terminated. She goes, "You're terminated, ducker." And then you see it kind of go crash, and its red light goes off, and then you know it's kaput basically. But yeah, no, the Terminator is definitely. I think we can call it a creature film for sure.
I think so. Yeah,
Um, for
I'll let you have it.